There are several reasons why your family may or may not be excited about you moving to Africa. And in this video, I want to talk about them. I rarely talk about my family dynamic, and so in this video, I'm also going to give you a bit more background on my personal life and my familial relationships to give you some context as to why things for me felt a little bit easier, but at the same time, still are challenging, right? So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Ashley. On my channel, Ashley in Africa, I talk about my experience living, moving, and doing business on the continent. I share my experience of love, motherhood, and entrepreneurship. And if that sounds interesting, please feel free and be sure to subscribe to the channel. And if this video and other content that I share resonates with you and seems valuable, like it and share it with someone that could find value in it as well. I just celebrated 2 years. My girls and I celebrated 2 years living on the continent this month, actually. Well, in October. So I think this video will go live in November. But yeah, it's been 2 years spending majority of my time here in Dar es Salaam, but also South Africa as I prepare to relocate there for, different opportunities, but specifically professional opportunities and the ability to continue on in my skill set and build businesses all over the world. So that's why, and one of the reasons why we're preparing to move to South Africa. But in this video, I want to talk about why family may not be okay. And, truthfully and honestly, my family dynamic is really an emotional topic, right? On some days, and on others, it's not. Like, I could care less. But I had a moment when I was in Cape Town after interacting with a family member that just really put me in a very vulnerable and emotional state where I questioned, again, why is there this disconnect, right? Why is there even likely this disdain that I'm dealing with? And yeah, I want to talk about it in this video, but I want to give you a bit of background on my family dynamics. So I was born Boston, Massachusetts, to a single mother. My mom and my dad were never together. And yeah, I was basically my mom's only child until about the age of 8. And my younger sister was born, and my mom did not end up with her dad either. And so she was a single parent of 2 children, 2 girls. And probably about at the age of 10, we left Boston and moved to Tampa, Florida, where my mother's father was. So one of the major reasons why we moved to Tampa, Florida was because that's where her dad was and she wanted to have more of a relationship with him. My mom also had one sister. And at the time she had 2 daughters who were my cousins. They lived in New York. So New York and Boston, very close. But my mom and my aunt were raised in Boston by their grandmother, while their mom, my grandmother, lived and worked in New York. That was a very volatile relationship, ultimately ending in there not being a very strong bond between my grandmother and myself. And, it kind of gives insight into some of the challenges that many Black mother and daughters have, the relationships, and often when there's disconnect between the mother and the daughter. And when that is not healed, how that kind of continues on into the relationships of the daughters ongoing, right? So after that move to Tampa, we spent about 4 years there. And for various reasons, my mom just didn't love it. We moved again to Miami, Florida, where I finished high school and went on from there to study in-state at a university, Florida State University. And so giving all of this context, the facts is that, my family, the core family, my mom, my sister, and I, we moved around a lot. And after college, I realized that I would move around based on wherever the job opportunity took me. My mom had moved while I was in college to Nashville, Tennessee. And so there was really no need for me to go back home, right? But the concept of going back home just wasn't something that I had. While many of my other classmates and friends had, it just wasn't something that I had because we had moved around a lot. So I spent majority of my professional career in Atlanta, Georgia. At that time, my mom had moved to Georgia, and so our core family was there. I also, in a previous video, mentioned that my younger sister, about 11 years ago, was murdered in Atlanta, Georgia. And so, for that and many other reasons, Atlanta had become a place that I just no longer felt the need to be in. And when I made the decision to move abroad, although it was something I had dreamed about, I really, you know, didn't know exactly where that would take me. I had spent some time in Seoul, Korea. I love Seoul. I'd spent a lot of time in Jamaica, loved Jamaica, but I'd never really considered or talked about moving to Africa. And this is my perception, right? It could be or couldn't be true that had I decided to move to Europe, Seoul, even Jamaica, I would have less of the backlash that I got when I decided to move to the continent. And I believe that a lot of this is because of the conditioning of African Americans and our idea and our concept of Africa and what it is, the stories we've been told, the way in which we've been kind of pitted against each other in the US. There's always the story of, oh, I work with an African and they don't like African Americans, or, I know a girl who dated an African, or I know somebody who lives in Africa and they say these things. There is an extremely strong narrative of Africans not liking African Americans, and this strong narrative of poverty and lack of access to clean water, food, and healthcare, which, while there are many underdeveloped parts of this continent, there are the fastest growing economies here in the world in Africa. And that perception just hasn't been shifted in the minds of many Black Americans. And so fear is the number one reason why your family may not be excited or comfortable with you moving to the continent, and understanding why that fear is. And if you can have a conversation with them long enough, they'll admit it themselves that they're afraid. They're afraid of what they don't know. They're afraid of what they have been told to be true, not necessarily what is true. And they're afraid that everything that they have been told could possibly be a lie. For those of you all that are following the current pop news or current news trends, Kanye West, he said a lot of things in his article, in this interview that has since been deleted from Drink Champs or Revolt TV. But in an after conversation, he said, people would rather live the pain of a lie than the fear of the truth. And that has, I think, a lot to do with the reason why my family is not as supportive of this fly, y'all, is in here, not as supportive of my move to Africa, as I hoped, or as I would have hoped. And, it's hurtful, right? But there's also, the lack of understanding. So we come here, we do the research, we see people living their best lives, we live our best life, okay? And the concept of that is just very hard to understand when you're committed and your life is and has been committed to living in an environment where you are the minority, where you are just used to the oppression, where you're just used to the prejudice, where you're just used to working a life to pay bills, where you're just used to barely getting by, where you're just used to buying everything to make yourself feel better, where you're just used to having sunshine for 3 months out of the year. That lack of understanding of what life could be like is another reason why they may not agree. My friends, I share a lot more vlogging content, photos and videos of my lifestyle on Instagram. And the majority of people that know me and have known me for years, they really don't engage. They don't comment. And I think it's just because it's like, that's not, I don't know why it is, right? I try to create these stories in my head, but I don't know exactly why it is. But again, I think it's probably a lack of understanding, right? The fact that I am actually doing something and living in a place that they would have, one, never considered, two, is told is riddled and stricken with poverty and, huts and animals. And then three, how could anything be better than this? This is what we've been told. We're, as Americans, told America is the best place. It is the best country in the world. It's the safest country in the world. It is the most opportunity in the world. And the fact that that is not true for many people is unfathomable, right? Excuse me. It's unfathomable. It's just not realistic. And that's a reason why family may not agree. The next reason is, a friend of mine posed this to me, was family. Oftentimes, certain people in your family feel they need to feel needed. Certain people need to feel needed by you. And when they no longer feel needed, they feel offended. And so many of my family members are possibly offended by my decision and saying, I'm going to do this for me. And not only don't I need your approval, I don't necessarily need your presence. And while this isn't necessarily true, because I still, till this day, struggle with some guilt and some, sadness and some separation, feelings that it's not true, but I understand it, right? I understand that the fulfillment of certain family members wanting to feel needed by me or wanting to feel my presence and it no longer being there is so much of a problem that they'd rather just blow me off than continue to have me operate. The fact that I made this decision, many of them have taken it personally, as if I have done something personally to them, or there is now this void that they can't comprehend that I am the reason for, so I am thus the problem. And those are the only things that I can really take from it, right? And a lot of this narrative I've had to create myself, because some of the things that have happened since my move abroad have been really like, wow, like we're doing that. But, while we can never really truly understand human behavior in all aspects and we can create theories around it, I know ultimately that my happiness is I choose my happiness, right? It's dependent upon me making those decisions. And, I can't necessarily be concerned and live my life based on the feelings of others, the negative feelings of others. And while I have empathy and I understand the decision to make this move has been the best decision I've ever made in my life. It has restored me. It has made me a better woman. It has made me a better mother, has made me a better partner, a better professional. And and while I hope and pray that my family will continue to grow in their perception and their understanding, I also am coming to a place that even if that doesn't happen, I will be okay. So if you have a family member that is considering moving, has left, and you're feeling away, I would love for you to comment below. Or if you are moving or you are preparing to move and your family has said certain things, or you have moved and your family has done certain things to you, please comment below. This is a community and I read all of your comments. I value the contributions of everyone to this community. And I'd love to just share and know that I'm not alone, right? But yeah, please leave me your comments below. If you like this video and this content is valuable, please like it and share it with someone who else would find value in it. And if you are in the process of moving, expanding your business to specifically Tanzania or South Africa, I'd love to work with you. You can connect with me via the link below, and get on my calendar and find some time. But until the next video, I'll see you soon.